Yeah, everything's looks good to me. I just don't know if anyone can hear me or what's happening. Hello? Why do you leave this up to me? Hello? What? What is this? Hello? I have no clue what this is. Get out of here, fruitcakes. It says live. Oh, God. What? This is crazy. What? This should be easier, stupid. When does it come? When does it sync? I'll just wait. What is this? A 5-second delay? Oh. Well, excuse me all over the place. Alright, so right now what I have to do is... What? All I have to do is just... I just need to put this on the basic page. What is this? I put it on... this is so crazy. I'm just trying to figure out how to do this so quickly. There we go. There's that. Live right now. Because no, don't just come here and do it then. Oh, so annoying you are. All right, folks. Soon I'm going to be reading from The Great Gatsby, and I thank you all so much for being here at this time. If you could just give me 1 second here, I'm just trying to get all the bearings figured out since Chrissy's too lazy to do it. I understand that it's live. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I'm very sorry. That's what I'm doing right now. This is something that you should have done prior to this. Oh. This is just heartbreaking. It just really is. Because no one can see it, stupid. Folks, if you just bear with me 1 second, you know, reading is so important. And just stick around. Soon I will be reading from F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Now hold on 1 second, please. Just hold on 1 second-rooney. Just like this. Okay, now what? Right? Where is that? Doesn't make any sense. No, you're totally in deep shit. Okay, right over here. I put this up. I don't see it, stupid. What is this? Now it's all stuttery cakes. Folks, I'm sorry about this. Seriously. But if you just give me 1 second, I'm suddenly a computer programmer. Alright, screw it. I can't do it. I'm not going to deal with this. Folks, I wanted to take this opportunity. No, because if they can't see... Oh, God. Alright. You see, I'm being told to do this thing. So people understand. My skin is all oily. Unbelievable. So I missed this. I'm supposed to have a dashboard? You know, YouTube does all these crazy things. And so what I'm trying to do is do this crazy crap while doing this. But so enough of that. Really. People will either know where to come or they don't. Hopefully you can share this with people right now. This is live. Just let all of your friends and lovers know what's happening. Your friends and family know what's happening right now. This is live to promote reading, because I was very disturbed to find out that 67% of fourth graders in the United States today are reading below their level, and that's just unbelievable. So that's why I'm promoting reading, and I think it's important that both adults and children read more. And there's a wealth of stories to be told that are written in books and in fabulous stories for you to share and you can pass on and just read. And it's good to read a book. You could smell it. It smells so nice. I love the smell of a good book. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, to really promote Great Gatsby, I'm going to drink some Prosecco while reading from a fantastic, one of the best stories. Oh, Lord. Oh! Stupid. Next time that'll hit your face. So, to United States of America, F. Scott Fitzgerald and the Great Gatsby, a toast of my Prosecco. Because they used to drink champagne and everything else during the time of the Great Gatsby, like it was waters. So, to you, I hope that America and all of us start reading more and promote it and pass on word to read, because not enough people are reading. Now I'm just going to make that background. So salute. Let's read. And hey, if you're on here right now, I just want you to know. Oh, look how stupid. Okay. Thank you, Miss Moppet Kitty. And thank you, Ragabosh Moon. I thank you so much, and to anyone else who happens to be in here, I want to tell you folks, spread the word. Let other people know that right now there's a lot of stuff happening. So, before I begin reading the fabulous Gatsby, and I just want you to know, oh, look, all these things are happening. Listen, so you can write your comments, and I'm going to respond to things during chapter breaks. We're going to have what are known as chapter breaks. And I apologize for taking so long for this to start. But again, I'm really doing this to emphasize how important it is for everyone to read, especially our children. And get the, it's time, I see a lot of you people are having babies. It's important to get them early and young. Just start reading to them. So by the time they're able to read for themselves, they will have already had this wealth of knowledge in words alone. Just getting to hear words and learning what these words mean is very important. So, forgive me. Just wanted to say that. And thank you so much for being here. And don't be a poopsie. See, look how easy this is. I'm going to take simply the link that you see in the URL, and I go over to my Twitter and say, hey, what's up? Getting my Gatsby on. See, just like this. Getting my Gatsby on. I drop the link. Smile, I love you all. Hugs and kisses, hugs and kisses. Retweet that shit, please. And there we go. And now I'm back here with you. And so, as I was saying, let us drink to reading. And if you're watching this right now, tell others how important it is to read and to tune in right now if they want to find out more about this Gatsby. I know I look very forward to it. Thank you all so much for being here. And now, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm gonna read it. I'm just skipping the intro. The Great Gatsby. Look at that. Look how much fun that is. Just open up a book. See? The Great Gatsby. Oh, the title page is delicious. I'm gonna drink to that. If you happen to be watching, incidentally, and you maybe have some wine in a box, or vermouth, or some beer, because it's also the home run hitting contest. Oh, shit! Why didn't you do this? That was all I asked for. Whatever. I guess they'll repeat it. I meant to set the thing. You didn't set the DVD. You can make a drinking game out of this. Anytime that you hear me say Gatsby, just drink away. Like if I say the Great Gatsby. Everyone like, stop it, Gatsby. The Great Gatsby. I'm on the title page. Hold on 1 second. Here's just a little bit more Prosecco. And kids, listen. Don't, this is just me being silly. There's no need for you to drink and be the wild thing, you know? It's important, kids, that you really just read. And just behave yourselves. Anyways. Don't follow suit, because drinking is actually pretty stupid. But if you're too young, don't try that funny stuff. Just wait. You're not missing anything. Underage drinking is just bonkers. But not reading, especially classics like this one, The Great Gatsby, is ridiculous. The Great Gatsby. Once again to Zelda. Once again to Zelda. Oh, he made it. I didn't know he made Gatsby for Zelda. Huh. I forgot I'm supposed to read out loud. Chapter 1. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. He didn't say any more, but we've always been unusually communicative in a reserved way, and I understood that he meant a great deal more than that. In consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, a habit that has opened up many curious natures to me and also made me the victim of not a few veteran bores. The abnormal mind is quick to detect and attach itself to this quality when it appears in a normal person. And so it became about that in college, I was unjustly accused of being a politician because I was privy to the secret griefs of wild, unknown men. Most of my confidences were unsought. Frequently, I have feigned sleep, preoccupation, or a hostile levity which I realized by some unmistakable sign that an intimate revelation was quivering on the horizon. For the intimate revelations of young men, or at least the terms in which they express them, are usually plagiaristic and marred by obvious suppressions. Reserving judgments in a matter of infinite hope. I am still a little afraid of missing something if I forget that, as my father snobbishly suggested, and I snobbishly repeat, a sense of the fundamental decencies is parceled out unequally at birth. And after boasting this way of my tolerance, I come to the admission that it has a limit. Conduct may be founded on the hard rock or the wet marshes, but after a certain point, I don't care what it's founded on. When I came back from the East last autumn, I felt that I wanted the world to be in uniform and had a sort of moral attention forever. I wanted no more riotous excursions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. Only Gatsby. Thank you. The man who gives his name to this book was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby? Who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him. Some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life. As if he were related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. This responsiveness had nothing to do with that flabby impressionability, which is dignified under the name of the creative temperament. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, in which is not likely I shall ever find again. No, Gatsby turned out all right at the end. It is what preyed upon Gatsby, what foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams that temporarily closed out my interest in the abortive sorrows and short-winded elations of men. And I just said it twice. I'll have another, please. It flows like water here in the Great Gatsby. I just said it again. Oh, and I burped. This is a terrible idea. So that's 3 Gatsbys. My family had been prominent, well-to-do people in this middle western city for 3 generations. The Carraways are something of a clan, and we have a tradition that we're descended from the Dukes of Buccleuch. But the actual founder of my line was my grandfather's brother, who came here in '51, sent a substitute to the Civil War, and started the wholesale hardware business that my father carries on today. I never saw this great uncle, but I'm supposed to look like him. That's so fucking crazy. With special reference to the rather hard-boiled painting that hangs in Father's office. I graduated from New Haven in 1915, just a quarter of a century after my father. And a little later I participated in that delayed Teutonic migration known as the Great War. I enjoyed the counter raid so thoroughly that I came back restless. Instead of being the warm center of the world, the Middle West now seemed like the ragged edge of the universe. So I decided to go east and learn the bond business. That's so stupid. Well, I guess maybe not for the time. Bonds. Everybody I knew was in the bond business, so I supposed it could support one more single man. All my aunts and uncles talked it over as if they were choosing a prep school for me, and finally said, "Why, yes!" with their very grave and hesitant faces. Father agreed to finance me for a year, and after various delays, I came east permanently. I thought in the spring of 22. The practical thing was to find rooms in the city, but it was the warm season, and I had just left the country with wide lawns and friendly trees. So when a young man at the office suggested that we take a house together in a commuting town, it sounded like a fabulous idea. He found the house, a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow, at $80 a month, but at least minus the firm. But at the last minute, the firm ordered him to Washington. I beg your pardon. He found the house, a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow at $80 a month, but at the last minute, the firm ordered him to Washington, and I went out to the country alone. I had a dog. At least I had him for a few days, until he ran away. That's so sad. And an old Dodge, and a Finnish woman who made my bed and cooked breakfast and muttered Finnish wisdom to herself over the electric stove. I mean, what happened to this? What happened to the dog? I don't understand. Like, what? The dog just, like, ran away? It was lonely for a day or so until one morning, some man more recently arrived than I stopped me on the road. "How do you get to the West Egg Village?" he asked helplessly. "How do you get to the West Egg Village?" I told him, and as I walked on, I was lonely no longer. I was the guide. A pathfinder, an original settler. He had casually conferred on me the freedom of the neighborhood. Instead, with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as things grow in fast movies, I had that familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer. There was so much to read, for one thing, and another thing was that there was so much help to be pulled down out of the young, breath-giving air. So much fine help to be pulled down out of the... What's... Just too loud. Can you folks even hear that music? Can you folks hear that music? James Bond. Love James Bond. Oh, yes. I bought a dozen volumes on banking and credit and investment securities, and they stood on my shelf in red and gold like new money from the mints, promising to unfold the shining secrets that only Midas and Morgan and Maecenas knew. Maecenas? Macarenas? And I had the high intention of reading many other books besides. I was rather literary in college. One year I wrote a series of very solemn and obvious editorials for the Yale News. And now I was going to bring all back such things into my life and become again that most limited of all the specialists, the well-rounded man. This isn't just an epigram. Life is much more successfully looked at from a single window, after all. It was a matter of chance that I should have rented a house in one of the strangest communities in North America. It was on that slender, riotous island which extends itself due east of New York, and where there are, among other natural curiosities, 2 unusual formulations of land. 20 miles from the city, a pair of enormous eggs, identical in contour and separated only by a courtesy bay, just out into the most domesticated body of salt water in the Western Hemisphere, the great wet barnyard of Long Island Sound. They are not perfect ovals, like the egg in the Columbus story. They're both crushed flat at the contact end, but their physical resemblance must be a source of perpetual confusion to the gulls that fly overhead. To the wingless, a more arresting phenomenon is their dissimilarity in every particular except shape and size. I lived at West Egg, the less fashionable of the two, though this is the most superficial tag to express the bizarre, and not a little sinister contrast between them. My house is at the very tip of the egg, only 50 yards from the Sound, and squeezed between 2 huge places that rented for $12,000 or $15,000 a season. The one on my right was a colossal affair by any standard. It was a factual imitation of some Hotel de Ville in Normandy, with a tower on one side, spanking new under a thin beard of raw ivy, and a marble swimming pool, and more than 40 acres of lawn and garden. It was Gatsby's mansion. Or rather, as I didn't know, Mr. Gatsby. It was a mansion inhabited by a gentleman of that name. My own house was an eyesore. But it was a small eyesore. And it had been overlooked, so I had a view of the water, a partial view of my neighbor's lawn, and the consoling proximity of millionaires, all for $80 a month. Across the courtesy bay, the white palaces of fashionable East Egg glittered along the water, and the history of the summer really begins on the evening I drove over there to have dinner with the Tom Buchanans. Daisy was my second cousin once removed, and I had known Tom in college, and just after the war I spent 2 days with them in Chicago. Her husband, among various physical accomplishments, had been one of the most powerful ends that ever played football at New Haven, a national figure in a way, one of those men who reached such an acute, limited excellence at 21 that everything afterwards savors of anticlimax. His family were enormously wealthy. Even in college, his freedom with money was a matter for reproach. But now he'd left Chicago and come east in a fashion that rather took your breath away. For instance, he'd brought down a string of polo ponies from Lake Forest. It was hard to realize that a man in my own generation was wealthy enough to do that. Why they came east, I don't know. They had spent a year in France for no particular reason, and then drifted here and there, unrestfully, wherever people played polo, and they were all rich together. This was a permanent move, said Daisy over the telephone, but didn't believe it. I had no sight into Daisy's heart, but I felt that Tom would drift on forever seeking, a little wistfully, for the dramatic turbulence of some irrevocable football game. And so it happened that on a warm, windy evening, I drove over to East Egg to see 2 old friends whom I scarcely knew at all. Their house was even more elaborate than I expected, a cheerful red and white Georgian colonial mansion overlooking the bay. The lawn started at the beach and ran toward the front door for a quarter of a fucking mile, jumping over the sundials and brick walls and burning gardens. Finally, when it reached the house, drifting up the side in bright vines as though from the moratorium of its run. The front was broken by a line of French windows, glowing now with the reflected gold and wide open to the warm, windy evening, and Tom Buchanan, in riding clothes, was standing with his legs apart on the front porch. Maybe awesome when we hear Buchanan. Let me get my others. Thanks. Put that right there. He had changed since his New Haven years. Now he was a sturdy, straw-haired man of 30, with a rather hard mouth and a supercilious manner. Two shining, arrogant eyes had established dominance over his face, and gave him the appearance of always leaning aggressively forward, like this. Not even the effeminate swank of his riding clothes could hide the enormous power of that body. He seemed to fill those glistening boots until he strained the top lacing, and you could see a great pack of muscle shifting when his shoulder moved under the thin coat. It was the body capable of enormous leverage. A cruel body. His speaking voice, a gruff, husky tenor, added to the impression of fractiousness he conveyed. There was a touch of paternal contempt in it, even toward the people he liked. And there were men at New Haven who had hated his guts. Now, don't they think my opinion on these matters is final, he seemed to say, just because I'm stronger and more of a man than you are? We were in the same senior society, and while we were never intimate, I always had the impression that he approved of me and wanted me to like him with some harsh, defiant wistfulness of his own. We talked for a few minutes on the sunny porch. I've got a nice place here, he said, his eyes flashing about restlessly. Turning me around by one arm, he moved one of his flat hands along the front vista, including its sweep of a sunken Italian garden, a half-acre of deep, pungent roses, and a snub-nosed motorboat that bumped the tide offshore. It belonged to the the oil man. He turned me around again, politely and abruptly. We'll go inside. We walked through a high hallway into a bright, rosy-colored space, fragilely bound into the house by French windows at either end. The windows were ajar, seemed a little way into the house. A breeze blew through the room, blew curtains in at one end and out the other like pale flags, twisting them up and towards the frosted wedding cake of the ceiling, and then rippled over into the wine-colored rug, making a shadow on it as the wind does upon the sea. The only completely stationary object in the room was an enormous couch, on which two young women were buoyed up as though upon an anchored balloon. They were both in white, and their dresses were rippling and fluttering as if they had just been blown back in after a short flight around the house. I must have stood a few moments, listening to the whip and snap of the curtains, and the groan of a picture on the wall. And there was a boom as Tom Buchanan shut the rear windows, and the caught wind died out about the room, and the curtains and the rugs and the two women ballooned slowly to the floor. The younger of the two was a stranger to me. She was extended full length at her end of the divan, at the end of the divan, completely motionless, and with her chin raised a little, as if she were balancing something on it which was quite likely to fall. If she saw me out of the corner of her eyes, she gave no hint of it. Indeed, I was almost surprised into murmuring an apology for having disturbed her by coming in. The other girl, Daisy, made an attempt to rise. She leaned slightly forward with a conscientious expression, and then I laughed, and she laughed, and then she came forward into the room. I'm paralyzed with happiness. She laughed again, as if she said something very witty, and held my hand for a moment, looking up into my face, promising that there was no one else in the world she so much wanted to see. That was the way she had. She hinted in a murmur that the surname of the balancing girl was Baker. I've heard it said that Daisy's murmur was only to make people lean toward her, an irrelevant criticism that made it no less charming. At any rate, Miss Barker's lips fluttered. She nodded at me almost imperceptibly. Imperceptibly. I beg your pardon. Almost imperceptibly. and then quickly tipped her head back again. The object she was balancing had obviously tottered a little and given to something of a fright. Again, a sort of apology arose to my lips. Almost any exhibition of complete self-sufficiency draws a stunned tribute from moi. I looked back at my cousin, who had begun to ask me questions in her low, thrilling voice. It was the kind of voice that the ear follows up and down as if each speech is an arrangement of notes, and lovely with bright things in it. Her bright eyes, her bright, passionate mouth, but there was an excitement in her voice that men who had cared for her found difficult to forget. A singing compulsion, a whispered, "Listen, listen," a promise that she had gone I promised her she had done gay, exciting things just a while since, and that there were gay, exciting things hovering in the next hour. I told her how I stopped off in Chicago for a day on my way east, and how a dozen people had sent their love through me. "Do they miss me?" she cried ecstatically. "The whole town is desolate. All the cars have left rear wheel painted black as if mourning a wreath, and then and a mourning wreath, and there's a persistent wail all night long to the North Shore. Oh, how gorgeous! Let's go back, Tom. Tomorrow." Then she added irreverently, "You ought to see the baby." "I'd like to." "She's asleep. She's 3 years old. Haven't you ever seen her?" "Never." "Well, you ought to see her. She's—" Tom Buchanan, who had been hovering relentlessly about the room, stopped and rested his hand on my shoulder. "What are you doing, Nick?" "I'm a bondman." "Who with?" I told him. "Never heard of him. Never heard of them," he remarked decisively. This annoyed me. "Oh, you will," I answered shortly. "You will if you stay in the East." "Oh, I'll stay in the East. Don't you worry," he said, glancing at Daisy and then back at me, as if he were alert for something more. "I'd be a goddamn fool to live anywhere else." At this point, Miss Baker said, "Absolutely!" with such sadness that I startled. I'm sorry, here. Absolutely. It was the first word she had uttered since I came into the room. Evidently, it surprised her as much as it did me, for she yawned and with a series of rapid, deft movements stood up into the room. "I'm stiff," she complained. "I've been lying on that sofa for as long as I can remember." "Don't look at me," Daisy retorted. "I've been trying to get you to New York all afternoon." "No, thanks," said Miss Baker, I'm sorry. She complained. "No, thanks," said Miss Baker to the 4 cocktails just in from the pantry. "I'm absolutely in training." Her host looked at her incredulously. "You are?" He took down his drink as if it were a drop of a glass. "How you ever get anything done is beyond me." I looked at Miss Baker, wondering what it was that she had got done. I enjoyed looking at her. She was a slender, small-breasted girl with an erect carriage, which she accentuated by throwing her body backward at the shoulders like a young cadet. Her gray, sun-stained eyes looked back at me with polite, reciprocal curiosity out of a wan, charming, discontented face. It occurred to me now that I had seen her, or a picture of her, somewhere before. "You live in West Egg," she remarked contemptuously. "I know someone from there." "Oh, I don't know a single—" "You must know Gatsby!" "Gatsby?" demanded Daisy. "What Gatsby?" Oh, brother. Hold on, sister. It's 2 more up in there. I really hope you're enjoying this. This is The Great Gatsby. It's a classic. Oh, no. Miss Moppet, they should invite, they ought to invite you to the gay, exciting things that are happening. Yes, I believe they did use laughing gas back then. Oh, I'll just take a moment to answer these. Couch. Yeah, there was the nice couch in there. Oh, I love the story so far. I love this book. I always try to reread it once a year. And I'd say the past 9 years I have not read it. But I think it's fantastic. And then the movie came out, which I was so excited about, and I still have yet to see it. But I can tell you right now that the old one with Robert Redford is... I Love You. I love you. Thank you. Oh, the flat eggs. You can see them in your head. It's like, it looks as though they're squished at the end. And then plus with the sun shadows, it's just like these big perfect eggs that are just like splat. Oh, and I love me some Shari Paulson. Schmatz24, come on, please. Actually, I am. Quite. And there are very exciting things happening. You can hear the music, but it's not a problem. Okay, good. Alright, I should get back to this. So, we have 2 Gatsbys. That's one. Okay. Now remember, the last line was, "What Gatsby?" This book, I'm telling you. Before I could reply that he was my neighbor, dinner was announced. Wedging his tense arm imperatively under mine, Tom Buchanan compelled me from the room as though he were moving a checker into another square. Slenderly, languidly, their hands set lightly on their hips, the 2 young women preceded us out onto a rosy-colored porch, open toward the sunset, where 4 candles flickered on the table in the diminished wind. "Why candles?" objected Daisy, frowning. She snapped them out with her fingers. "In 2 weeks it'll be the longest day in the year." She looked at us all radiantly. "Do you always watch for the longest day of the year and then miss it?" "I always watch for the longest day of the year and then miss it." "We ought to plan something." "Oh," yawned Miss Baker, sitting down at the table as if she were getting into bed. "All right," said Daisy. "What'll we plan?" She turned to me helplessly. "What do people plan?" Before I could answer, her eyes fastened with an odd expression on her little finger. "Look," she complained. "I heard it." We all looked. The knuckle was black and blue. "You did it, Tom," she said accusingly. "I know you didn't mean to, but you did do it. That's what I get for marrying a brute of a man. A great, big, hulking physical specimen of a—" "I hate that word, hulking," objected Tom crossly, even in kidding. "Hulking," insisted Daisy. Sometimes she and Miss Baker talked at once, unobtrusively, and with a bantering inconsequence that was never quite chatter, that was as cool as their white dresses and their impersonal eyes in the absence of all desire. They were here, and they accepted Tom and me, marking only a polite, pleasant effort to entertain or to be entertained. They knew that presently dinner would be over, and a little later in the evening, too, would be over and casually put away. It was sharply different from the West, where an evening was hurried from phase to phase towards its close in a continually disappointed anticipation, or else in sheer nervous dread of the moment itself. "Oh, you make me feel uncivilized, Daisy," I confessed on my second glass of corky but rather impressive Claret. "Can't you talk about crops or something?" It meant nothing in particular, but by this remark, it was just to take it up a notch in an unexpected way. "Civilization's going to pieces," broke out Tom violently. "I've gotten to be a terrible pessimist about things. Have you read, quote, 'The Rise of the Colored Empires,' end quote, by this man Goddard?" "Why, no," I answered, rather surprised by his tone. You know, in the quotations, that's, in quotation marks, is the title of the book that he's reading. The Rise of the Colored Empires. "Why, no," I answered, rather surprised by his tone. "Well, it's a fine book, and everybody ought to read it. The idea is if we don't look out, the white race will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff, and it's all been proved." Oh, what a nut. "Tom's getting very profound," said Daisy, with an expression of unthoughtful sadness. "He reads deep books with long words in them. What was that word Well, these books are all scientific," insisted Tom, glancing at her impatiently. This fellow had worked out the whole thing. "It is up to us. We are the dominant race, to watch out, or these other races will have control of things." "We've got to beat them down," whispered Daisy, winking ferociously towards the fervent sun. Wow, this Tom is a real nut and a racist. "You want to live in California," began Miss Baker, but Tom interrupted her by shifting heavily in his chair. "The idea is this, that we're Nordics, okay? I am, and you are, and After an infinitesimal hesitation, he included Daisy with a slight nod, and she winked at me again. And we've produced all the things that go to make civilization. Oh, science and art and all that. Do you see? There was something pathetic in his concentration, as if his complacency, more acute than of old, was not enough for him anymore. When almost immediately the telephone rang inside and the butler left the porch, Daisy seized upon the momentary interruption and leaned toward me. "I'll tell you a family secret," she whispered enthusiastically. "It's about the butler's nose. Do you want to hear about the butler's nose?" "That's why I came over tonight." "Well, he wasn't always a butler. He used to be the silver polisher for some people in New York that had a silver service for 200 people. He had to polish it from morning till night until finally it began to affect his nose." "Things went from bad to worse," suggested Miss Baker. "Yes, things went from bad to worse until finally he had to give it up for his position." For a moment the last sunshine fell with romantic affection upon her glowing face. Her voice compelled me forward breathlessly as I listened. Then the glow faded, each light deserting her with lingering regret, like children leaving a pleasant street at dusk. The butler came back and murmured something close into Tom's ear, whereupon Tom frowned, pushed back his chair, and without a word went inside, as if his absence quickened something within her. Daisy leaned forward again, her voice glowing and stinging. "I love to see you at my table, Nick. You remind me of a rose, an absolute rose, doesn't he?" She turned to Miss Baker for confirmation. "An absolute rose?" This was untrue. I am not even faintly like a rose. She was only exemplarizing, but a stirring warmth flowed from her, as if her heart was trying to come out to you, concealed in one of those breathless, thrilling words. Then suddenly, she threw her napkin on the table and excused herself and went inside the house. Miss Baker and I exchanged a short glance, consciously devoid of meaning. I was about to speak when she sat up alertly and said, "Shh," in a warning voice. A subdued, impassioned murmur was audible in the room beyond, and Miss Baker leaned forward, unashamed, trying to hear. The murmur trembled on the verge of coherence, sank down, mounted excitedly, and then ceased altogether. "This Mr. Gatsby you spoke of is my neighbor," I said. "Jeez. Let me tell you something. Don't talk. I want to hear what happens." "Is something happening?" I inquired innocently. "You mean to say you don't know?" said Miss Baker, honestly surprised. "I thought everybody knew." "I don't." "Why," she said hesitantly, "Tom's got some woman in New York." "Got some woman?" I repeated blankly. Miss Baker nodded. "She might have the decency not to telephone him at dinner time, don't you think?" Almost before I had grasped her meaning, there was the flutter of a dress and the crunch of leather boots, and Tom and Daisy were back at the table. "It couldn't be helped," cried Daisy with tense gaiety. She sat down, glanced searchingly at Miss Baker, and then at me, and continued. "I looked outdoors for a minute, and it's very romantic outdoors. There's a bird on the lawn that I think must be a nightingale come over to the Conrad or White Star line. He's singing away," her voice saying, "It's romantic, isn't it, Tom?" "Very romantic," he said, and then he miserably to me, "If it's light enough after dinner, I want to take you down to the stables." The telephone rang inside. Bring! Starting, like startled. Startlingly. You know when you're startled by something? Startlingly. I'm so sorry. Wow, that took me like so long to figure out. Dusty, please get out of the box. Okay, excuse me. This Gatsby story is getting good. You folks are in for a treat. Gatsby's amazing. Well, I think that shit's really stupid, said Daisy. What are you talking about, asshole? That's not in here, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find my place. The telephone rang inside, startlingly. And as Daisy shook her head decisively at Tom, the subject of the stables, in fact all subjects, vanished into air. Among the broken fragments of the last 5 minutes at table, I remembered the candles being lit again, pointlessly, and I was conscious of wanting to look squarely at every one, and yet to avoid all eyes. I couldn't guess what Daisy and Tom were thinking, but I doubt even if Miss Baker, who seemed to have mastered a certain hearty skepticism, was able utterly to put this fifth guest's shrill metallic urgency out of mind. So sorry, folks. To a certain temperament, the situation might have seemed intriguing. My own instinct was to telephone immediately for the police. The horses, needless to say, were not mentioned again. Tom and Miss Baker, with several feet of twilight between them, strolled back to the library, as if to a vigil beside a perfectly tangible body, while trying to look pleasantly interested and a little deaf. I followed Daisy around a chain of connecting verandas to the porch in front. In its deep gloom, we sat down side by side on a wicker settee. Daisy took her face in her hands, as if feeling its lovely shape, and her eyes moved gradually out of the velvet dusk. I saw that turbulent emotions possessed her, so I asked what I thought would be his question about her little girl. We don't even know each other very well, she said suddenly. Even if we were cousins, you didn't come to my wedding. That wasn't the war, stupid. That's true, she hesitated. Well, I've had a very bad time, and I'm pretty cynical about everything. Evidently, she had reason to be. I waited, but she didn't say any more. And after a moment, I returned rather feebly to the subject of her daughter. I suppose she talks and eats and everything. Oh, yes, she eats. She looked at me absently. Listen, Nick, let me tell you what I said when she was born. Would you like to hear? Very much, I said. It'll show you how I've gotten to feel about things. Well, she was less than an hour old, and Tom was God knows where. I woke up out of either with an utterly abandoned feeling and asked the nurse right away if it was the boy or a girl. She told me it was the girl, so I turned my head away and wept. All right, I said. I'm glad it's a girl, and I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool. Oh, Daisy. You see, she said, I think everything's terrible anyhow. She went on in a convinced way. Everybody thinks so. The most advanced people, and I know. I've been everywhere, and I've seen everything, and, done everything. Her eyes flashed around her in a defiant way, rather like Tom's, and she laughed with thrilling scorn. Ha ha ha! Sophisticated! God, I'm sophisticated! The instant her voice broke off, ceasing to compel my attention, my belief, I felt the basic insincerity of what she had said. It made me uneasy, as though the whole evening had been a trick of some sort to exact a contributory emotion from me. I waited, and sure enough, in a moment she looked at me with an absolute smirk on her lovely face, as if she had asserted her membership in a rather distinguished secret society to which she and Tom both belonged. Inside, the crimson room bloomed with light. Tom and Miss Baker sat at either end of the long couch, and she read aloud to him from the Saturday Evening Post. The words, murmurous and uninflected, running together in a soothing tune. The lamplight bright on his boots and dull on the autumn leaf yellow window. Bright on his boots and dull on the autumn leaf yellow of her hair, glinted along the paper as she turned a page with a flutter of slender muscles in her arms. Like this, she did the funky chicken! When we came in, she held us silent for a moment with a lifted hand. To be continued, she said, tossing the magazine on the table, in our very next issue. Her body asserted itself with a restless movement of her knee, and she stood up. 10 o'clock, she remarked, apparently finding the time on the ceiling. Time for this good girl to go to bed. Jordan's going to play in the tournament tomorrow, explained Daisy, over at Westchester. Oh, you're Jordan Baker? I know now why her face was familiar. Its pleasing, contemptuous expression had looked out at me from many rotograver rotograph pictures of the sporting life at Asheville and Hot Springs and Palm Beach. Ooh, that's hot. I had heard some story of her too, a critical, unpleasant story, but what it was I had forgotten long ago. Good night, she said softly. Wake me at 8, won't you? If you'll get up. Oh shit. If you'll get up, she said. I will. Good night, Mr. Carraway. See you soon. See you anon, Ashley, she says to me. I will. Good night, Mr. Carraway. See you anon. Of course he will, confirmed Daisy. In fact, I think I'll arrange a marriage. Come over often, Nick, and I'll sort of, fling you together. You know, lock you up accidentally in linen closets and push you out to sea in a boat and all that sort of thing. Good night, called Miss Baker from the stairs. I haven't heard a word. She's a nice girl, said Tom after a moment. They ought to let her run around the country this way. Who ought to? Inquired Daisy coldly. Her family. Her family is one of them. Her family is one aunt about 1,000 years old. Besides, Nick's going to look after her. Aren't you, Nick? She says to me. She's going to spend lots of weekends out here this summer. And listen, I think the home influence will be very good for her. Daisy and Tom looked at each other for a moment in silence. Cringy. Is she from New York? I asked quickly. From Louisville. Our white girlhood was passed together there. Our beautiful white... Did you give Nick a little heart-to-heart talk on the veranda? Demanded Tom suddenly. Did I? She looked at me. I can't seem to remember. But I think we talked about the Nordic race. Yes, I'm sure we did. It sort of crept up on us, and the first thing you know... Don't you believe everything you hear, Nick? He advised me. I said lightly that I had heard nothing at all, and a few minutes later I got up to go home. They came to the door with me and stood beside me, side by side in a cheerful square of light. As I started my motor, Daisy perpetually called, Wait! Wait! I forgot to ask you something, and it's important. We heard you were engaged to a girl out west. That's right, operated Tom kindly. We heard that you were engaged. It's a label, so I'm too poor. But we heard it, insisted Daisy, surprising me by opening up again in a flower-like way. We heard it from these people, so it must be true. Of course I knew what they were referring to, but I wasn't even vaguely engaged. The fact that Gossip published the bands was one of the reasons I had come out east. You can't stop going on with an old friend on account of rumors. And on the other hand, I had no intention of being rumored into marriage. Hello? Their interest rather touched me, and it made them less remotely rich. Nevertheless, I was confused and a little disgusted as I drove away. It seemed to me that the thing for Daisy to do was to rush out of the house, child in her arms, but apparently there was no such intentions in her head. As for Tom, yeah, she could have just come out with a kid. Why'd she have to pull me aside for that bullshit? As for Tom, the fact that he had some woman in New York was really less surprising than that he had been depressed by a book. Something that was making him nibble at the edge of stale ideas, as if his sturdy physical egotism no longer nourished his perpetually heart. Already it was deep in summer on roadhouse roofs and in front of wayside garages, where new red gas pumps sat out in pools of light, and when I reached my estate at West Egg, I ran the car under its shed and sat for a while on an abandoned grass roller in the yard. The wind had blown it off, leaving a loud, bright night, with wings beating in the trees and a persistent organ sound as the full bellows of the earth blew the frogs full of life. That's good. Did you make this? Thank you. The wind had blown off. The wind had blown off, leaving loud. That's I already read that shit. The silhouette of a moving cat wavered across the moonlight. In turning my head to watch it, I saw that I was not alone. 50 feet away, a figure had emerged from the shadow of my neighbor's mansion and was standing with his hands in his pockets, regarding the silver pepper of the stars. Something in his leisurely movements and the secure position of his feet upon the lawn suggested that it was Mr. Gatsby himself, come out to determine what share was his of our local heavens. That's right, I just said it. I just said Gatsby. I just said it twice. A little bubbly Prosecco. There you go. That's a good camera angle. Hi everybody, how's everybody doing? Listen. So right now, Nick is going back and forth with his cousin. But we heard it, insisted Daisy. Oh no. Gatsby just showed up. Let's find out where that is now. That's right. He came out to determine what share was his of our local heavens, the beautiful stars. I decided to call him. Miss Baker had mentioned him at dinner, and that would do for an introduction. But I didn't call to him, for he gave a sudden intimation. I'm so sorry, folks. They keep saying this name, and I keep having a drink. But I didn't call to him, for he gave a sudden intimation that he was content to be alone. He stretched out his arms toward the dark water in a curious way, and far as I was from him, I could have sworn he was trembling. Involuntarily, I glanced seaward, and distinguished nothing except a single great light, minute and far away, that might have been the end of the dock. When I looked once more for Gatsby, he had vanished, and I was alone again in the unquiet darkness. And now it's time for a chapter break. Let's see what you folks are saying. Hi everybody, I want to thank you so much for being here and for watching this live Gatsby read. It is now presently 7 o'clock right here on the West Coast time, which means it is 10 o'clock there on the East. And I doubt highly I'm going to get through this entire book, just because Papa has to eat and feed the kiddies and so much more. But I really want to thank you all so much. And, you know, the story is really amazing. And twice now it's been turned into a movie. Twice over. And it's a really fantastic book that I believe everyone should be reading. And there are just so many amazing books to be had. There we go. I just changed the microphone setting. A little something right here. Just do that. Sorry, folks. So if how is everyone? So right now we're having a Great Gatsby break. And in case you're just joining us, which is possible, every time you hear Gatsby said, the name Gatsby, you have to drink. It's been a really fun drinking game. That was for one. And that was for 2. Ah, The Great Gatsby. Shit. Okay. Let's go back to reading The Great Gatsby. Okay. Yes. Folks, there's so many amazing things in this book. I'll read you one of my favorite parts. I'm just going to jump to one of my favorite parts in the book. Reading is really fun. I just want you to know how extraordinary it is to read and liberating. You can literally travel anywhere you wish simply by reading a book. That's all you have to do. It's just read. All you have to do is read and you can travel anywhere you want. Isn't that amazing? Let me share something with you. And you can learn so much. Now, I'm being very bad. I should have, with everything that I have set up on my computer right here, I should have set up a dictionary just in case I need something to find. So let me now open this up just in case I need it. Because sometimes, it's okay. You're not going to know every single word. And that's quite alright. And that's what reading is all about. Really is. Is the audio out of sync? Oh boy. Listen. Oh my goodness. Look at all this stuff right happening now. Oh boy. Well, I'm so sorry there are all these. Now I'm getting all these messages. What the fuck is the rotograph? Blew the frogs. No, the frogs weren't blown. They were blown out. Gatsby. Oh, Ron. Shit. Listen. I love to read. I'm glad you enjoy reading too. What? No, of course I didn't eat. I didn't think I'd be saying Gatsby this much. I'm sorry that I don't know what's happening with the connection here. But I want to thank you all so much for watching. That's what I'm trying to say to you folks. And I'm trying to encourage everybody to read. Thank you, Miss Moppet Kitty. I need a snack or some scraps. Listen. These two are a fabulous go together. Reading takes one to anywhere they want, a whole new universe. You can travel anytime you want. You can travel anytime you wish, anytime you want, simply by reading a good book. Now, The Great Gatsby. Shit. Boy, I hope you people are okay. I know I need snacks, kitty. Please. The auto update is broken? Shit. What a disaster. This is, folks, this is our first time doing this, so please forgive us. We're gonna get it better next time around. Next live event. Minute. Oh, minute details. Right. Like minutia. Thank you folks so much. Oh gosh. No, but I want the audio should be nice. You folks shouldn't have to, this should all be lined up. And that's, Chrissy, that's exactly, you see? And off he goes. Off he goes. My assistant was supposed to get me to do this at a theater. And he messed it up, so now I'm over at his house. I'm sorry, that's so unprofessional, me complaining. Just shut up! I'm trying to read The Great Gatsby. Fuck. Not good. I want to read you one of my favorite parts of this amazing book. Give me one moment, please. And I highly suggest, don't listen to it, and don't Kindle it. Just go to your local used bookshop or library, and I bet you they have this. Get yourself a copy of The Great Gatsby. Fuck, god damn it. What a stupid idea you had. No, because you're not drinking. I have to. Yeah, every time I say Gatsby. Fuck! I'm sorry, folks. I'm so sorry. Just have to do one more here. Yes, Ron. Goodness. Twice it was that. I'm gonna try and find my opinion on Mr. Gatsby. Shit. Why did you just do that? I just totally fell into that trap. My opinions on the chap from whom the book is named after is, you know, I think they're all in this really weird, holier-than-thou rich world. No, I could, in a lot of ways, it's just tough because it's written so well and in such a romantic way. I was going to say that these characters could live within the Atlas Shrugged world. You know, just saying. I'm trying to read you something nice. Listen to this. Oh. That's good. Wait a second. Hold on! Just wait a second. Yes, Ragabash Moon, it's true. I like audiobooks too, believe me. I think they're great and I want to do some, actually, narrate some. But there are so many people out there that say, oh, I read it, and they actually just listen to it. You know, saying that you listen to The Great Gatsby is not the same as saying you read The Great Gatsby. So my opinion on the fella is, I bet he's just cool as ice, but he could be, there's something very likable about him. But a lot of the people, well, some of the people, a lot of the people in this book are just annoying pricks. Stupid, very stupid. Listen. It was when curiosity about Gatsby was at its highest that the lights in his house failed to go on one Saturday night. And, as obscurely as it had begun, his career as Tremolaccio was over. I hear you, Miss Kitty. Miss Moppet Kitty. Yes. Could you please cook some stuff? Thank you. There you go, servant. Honey badgers always have servants. Only gradually did I become aware that the automobiles which turned unexpectedly into his drive stayed for just a minute and then drove sulkily away. Wondering if he were sick, I went over to find out. An unfamiliar butler with a villainous face squinted at me suspiciously from the door. Is Mr. Gatsby sick? Shit. No, but Randall might be. Stupid. Is Mr. G sick? Nope. After a pause, he added, Sir, in a crazy, grudging way. I hadn't seen him around, and I was rather worried. Tell him Mr. Carraway came over. Who? He demanded rudely. Carraway, asshole. Carraway? Alright, I'll tell him. Abruptly, he slams the door. Mr. Finn informed me that Gatsby had dismissed every servant in his house a week ago and replaced them with half a dozen others who never went into the West Egg Village to be bribed by the tradesmen, but ordered moderate supplies over the telephone. And he just said it. Just said it again. Hello, Prosecco. Goodbye, Prosecco. This part, see? So he's kind of a prick. You know, he gets rid of everyone. He gets rid of all of his servants. He just has it like that. He has the money. He get a whole new bunch of servants. But he's just like, he's gorgeous. What's happening with Chrome? Hey, Sir Wildcat, come on in and swoop in and pick up the scraps. I say, I said it. I just drank. What? Just say it. Smokebreaker's right. They're not letting me do anything here, Ron. Anyways. So this rude prick. There's this rude prick says, you know, they gotta da. Oh, no one goes over to the West Egg, right? So this is some substantial amount of time since that last. This is chapter 7. But this is, you know, 6 chapters after we left off. So a lot has definitely happened. I don't want to give it all too much away, just because you should be reading it. And cat hairs. Stupid fucking cat hairs. Well, I don't want cat hairs in my water, do you? Would you like some cat hair water? Alright then, see? Folks, you have to read this book. The movies, both movies don't do it any justice. None whatsoever. So he got rid of every service and replaced them. The grocery report reported that the kitchen looked like a pigsty, and the general opinion was that people weren't servants at all. Next day, Gatsby called in on the phone. "You going away?" I inquired. Son of a bitch. Whenever we say it, we have to do it. Thank you. It is tasty water. It's actually some nice. I have some nice flavors in this water. I like cucumber and lemon water. That's not too much to ask for, is it? That's so simple. All you have to do really is just get those things and put them in, slice them up and put them in a pitcher. No, old sport. I hear you fired all your servants, I said. I wanted somebody who could gossip. Daisy comes over quite often in the afternoons. So the whole Karen of Arsarin had fallen in like a card house that was approval on her eyes. There's some people Shine wanted to do something for. They're all brothers and sisters. They all used to run a small hotel. I see. He was calling up at Daisy's request. Would I come to lunch at her house tomorrow? Miss Baker would be there. Half an hour later, Daisy's cell phone seemed lame to find that I was coming. Something was up. And yeah, I couldn't believe that they would choose the occasion for a scene, especially for the heroine to see head out in the garden. Shit. You gotta read, folks. You gotta read these classics. This So there's so many others. I don't know where to start. All the classics. All you have to do is, we live in this day and age, kids. Just Google the best 25 books of all time. Fiber is good for you. Yeah, I know that. I think every time the reverb happens, the delay in audio gets worse. I blame YouTube. Shit. Ah, that makes me so sad. I don't know if I should blame YouTube or perhaps it's our setup. I mean, perhaps I'm telling you. Yo. No, but I told you if you go Ethernet, we don't have to worry about the streaming stuff. Echo? The fuck? Should be off there. What? No, closet. Oh, this asshole. What? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm trying to read this. I'm trying to read this right now, you idiot. Listen. I don't know how to get rid of the echo. Yes. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck what? This son of a bitch. You give me this bottle of Prosecco. Ask me to drink whenever I say Gatsby. Fuck Gatsby. And now you're asking me to change the settings while I'm in the middle of this thing? Balls. Balls. You have them. Plenty of balls. Listen. Here we go. He was calling up at Daisy's request. Would I come to lunch at her house tomorrow? Miss Baker would be there. And half an hour later, Daisy herself telephoned and seemed relieved to find that I was coming. Something was up, and yet I couldn't believe that they would choose this occasion for a scene, especially for the rather harrowing scene that Gatsby had outlined in the garden. I just said it again. I just repeated that shit. Yes! I do blame you! And you can stop posting, hanging up signs. I have cat hair in the Prosecco. Nope, I'm an alien echoing to a lot of people. Ron says I should be spanking you, you asshole. Folks, let me tell you again. So I just said it. I just said his name. And that's why I went for this drink. I'm telling you, I'm only drinking this Prosecco. Folks, it is now 20 minutes after the hour, and I wanted to express again to you how important it is to read, and how amazing it is to read. You can go anywhere you wish, simply by reading. All you need to do is pick up a book, and all of a sudden you're transported to a whole other place. Oh, and if you go to a used bookstore, you get books that smell fabulous like this. Okay, let me tell you something right here. The next day was broiling, almost the last, certainly the warmest of the summer. As my train emerged from the tunnel into sunlight, only the hot whistles of the National Biscuit Company broke the simmering hush at noon. The straw seats of the car hovered on the edge of combustion. The woman next to me perspired delicately for a while into her white sweatshirt, and then, as her newspaper dampened under her fingers, lapsed despairingly into deep heat with the desolate cry, Her pocketbook slapped onto the floor. "Oh my!" she gasped. And I picked it up with a wary bend and handed it back to her, holding it at arm's length, and by the extreme tip of the corners to indicate that I had no designs upon it. But everyone nearby, including the woman, suspected me of just the same. "Hot," said the conductor to familiar faces. "Some weather. Hot." "Is it hot enough for you? Because it's not for me. I want it colder," or "I want it hotter. Is it hot enough or cold enough for you?" I'm taking a fucking poll. It's like, screw you, stupid. I don't need it. Who are you, Mr. G? Mr. G with the weather? Just asking me all these questions about like how I react to the weather? Thank you very much. Prosecco is the good choice. Thank you. My communication, commutation. My commutation ticket had come back to me with a dark stain from his hand. That anyone should care in this heat whose flushed lips he kissed, whose head made damp the pajama pocket over his heart. Through the hall of the Buchanan's house blew a faint wind, carrying the sound of the telephone bell out to Gatsby and me as we waited at the door. Shit. "Oh. What do you want?" said Gatsby. "I don't know. It's really hot out. Why don't you..." Oh, shit. It's hot out. Why don't you take off your shirt?" I said. And so he did. Mr. Gatsby took off his shirt, ripping it all off at once, and I watched as those white buttons popped off of his beautiful chest and onto the floor. "Whoa," I said. Everyone was silent. The voice in the hall rose high with annoyance. "Very well then, I won't sell you the car at all. I'm under no obligations to you at all. And as for your bothering me about it at lunchtime, I won't stand it at all." "Holding down the receiver," said Daisy cynically. "No, he's not," I assured her. "It's a bona fide deal. I happen to know about it." Tom flung open the door, blocked out its space for a moment with his thick body, and hurried into the room. "Mr. Gatsby!" He put out his broad, flat hand with well-concealed dislike. "I'm glad to see you, sir." "Nick!" "Make us a cold drink," cried Daisy. This is where it really heats up, because it gets all crazy. I'm so sorry it's out of sync. That's my drink for Gatsby. I can't. I'd like to thank all of you for watching this evening. I just read you a lot from this book. It's Great Gatsby. Shit. And you can read it too. I want you to know that reading is one of the best things that you can do. So please pick up a book such as this one. The great and fabulous Mr. J. And you can read a lot of books. There are 30 novels, short stories out there to be had. The reason I read this is because this was recently turned into a motion picture featuring Leonardo DiCaprio and back in the day. It was awesome featuring amazing Robert Redford. So please if you've been following along, every time I said his name, drink. I'm very sorry. Also, I want to let you know that I don't encourage anyone under the age of 21 to drink. Please. Don't look at me. Let this be proof that it is not a wise thing to drink. In fact, so because I said it so much. Cheers to everyone who watched. Mr. Mopping Kitty, Mr. Monster, Steve Cat, Bash Moon. I want to thank Little Terry, and anyone else. Ray. There's some people out there I'd like to thank. I love to thank the ACA, as well as America, and also. I'm just going to turn this off, please. Let's just get this. That's just too much. It's too blaring. Also, PETA and PETA 2. And if you're watching this, I also want to thank Pawn Nation. You can watch a whole bunch of my fantabulous... So sorry. This is why I told you I'm not... I'm seriously going to have to give it to Chrissy Flower Bottoms right now. And when I say give it to him, I mean I'm going to beat the shit out of him and also maybe fire him. The sink is improving? Of course it is. Of course it is now. Folks, I want to thank you so much for watching. Be sure to recommend to your friends that they too start reading books. There's nothing like reading a book. And The Great Gatsby? Son of a bitch. By F. Scott Fitzgerald. Is that BBC? Yeah, I love it. You're just gonna love it. Just gonna love him, and all the amazing characters they have in here is amazing. Ooh, Jesus! Look, it's such a sexy book, rich with emotion. Oh, take me to your stables. Anyways, folks, I'm not stopping because I had... Yes, it's being recorded. Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you so much for asking. I love you. Say, or maybe not. It depends on what my assistant decides is important to Fly's life right now. I want to tell all of you, thank you so much for watching this, and how important it is to read. If you have children, please make sure you're reading. If you're a teenager or a child watching this, please make sure you read. And if you're an adult, please go to your local library, go to Barnes & Noble, do some fucking thing, get a book. It's amazing to read a book. It's important that we as a nation read. And I'll have you know something else. It is not okay to have pets. It is not spayed or neutered. It's important that you spay or neuter your pets and make sure they have all their shots. Please, because we have to. The population is just increasing every day. And also to help the Martin family. And as well as animals. Just visit online. You see there are a lot of causes about dolphins. You can have about bears. There are many different causes. I want to thank you so much. Yeah, I did try. I love you too, sweetie. I tried so hard to read the entire thing. I was going to, I was chapter 1, I did chapter 1, and then I was going to keep going, and then I just jump to a favorite part of the book. And I would have been in chapter 7, but there's so much more inside this novel that you must read. Please read, and let me explain to you. Listening to a book is not the same as reading a book. I don't care if you have to Kindle, I don't care if you have to download it. It'd be great great to a useful shop to get it, or a bookstore and buy it. But if you can't, it's okay. I just want everyone to read. And FYI, reading things online is not the same as reading a book. Okay? You can't tell me that you just read a bunch of things on websites during the course of your day, and that you just read a book. That's not the same as reading or listening to it. You must physically pick up a book. And if you have a Kindle, if you have one of these iPads with books, that's great, fine, whatever it takes, just read. Please read. But if you buy a book and you smell how fucking great it smells. Oh my god, I want to thank all of you. I love you all so much. Isabel, Ruby, Baka, I want to thank you, Sir Wildcats. I want to thank you, Miss Mop the Kitty. I love you so much. Yes. A little snacky. You are so screwed. And Ron, I'll hire you. I'll get rid of this schmuck and bring you aboard, and we can have a lot of fun. I wish I had it in me to actually finish reading the book. Perhaps in the future, maybe I'll read something else. Okay. He quits it. That's right. It's true. Ragabash Moons just said it. I want to thank you all so much. I will be having there will be new videos up this week. Don't think there won't be. Check back on Wednesday. Wednesday is the next time I'm going to release a new animal video. And I want to thank you so much for being here. And remember, The Great Gatsby, there are a ton of other books. What? Read us the next... I could read next week. It's not a bad idea. Maybe I read it live. That's what I was thinking of doing. That's his idea. I can't shut up emotion. He's not even saying anything. Shut up. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. Look at this. You happy? Are you happy? It's not 1920. It is not 1920, dude. Good morning. I'm not a flapper. I hope you enjoy the reading of the Great Gatsby. I love you all so much. Do not. I know my audio sucks. I'm so sorry, High Rollers crew. It's annoying. Because that, I'm just gonna go right now. I love you all so much. Thank you so much. Read.